Well, you've heard it said that people don't like to talk about money. But what about the kind of person who ties up his or her sense of self-esteem with how much they have? These money status people, they tend to affirm statements like these. Money is what gives life meaning, or your self-worth equals your net worth, or if something's not considered the best, it is not worth buying, or people are only as successful as the amount of money they earn, or rich people have no reason to be unhappy, or if others have more, I am less. They affirm such ideas, and they can also behave in certain characteristic ways. Money status people tend to take bigger financial risks because they want to have stories of huge gains to show off. Or whether we are talking diamond rings or donuts, this sort of person is going to try to bargain with the salesperson for the best possible deal, and they are going to be so focused on how powerful this makes them feel that they are oblivious to the fact that they are acting like jerks. Money status people like to talk about money. Oh, yeah. So do money worship people. Now, the second kind of person believes that whatever the problem is, having more money is the solution. The sort of things that they tend to affirm include, it is hard to be poor and happy, or you can never have enough money, or money is power, or I will never be able to afford the things I really want in life, or money is freedom. Because of such convictions, money worship people can tend to be spenders. Since money is their security and love substitute, the act of purchasing becomes instant pleasure, instant gratification. To save and prioritize for the future is especially hard because that represents denial of urgent here and now hungers to feel good and to feel worthwhile. Saving and prioritizing, well, that just takes away all the fun. So let's talk about money, say the money worship people. They want to let you know about all the things that they got at the various places and how good they're going to look when they wear those things, or how improved their homes are going to be, or whatever. The whole experience was just a rush, and they want to tell you all about that. And perhaps by now you see my point. There are different personality types around money, or different kinds of scripts that people live out. And I am not claiming that this typology system is 100% neat and tidy. In some places, different types overlap. Sometimes people can combine scripts that appear to contradict each other, but in general, people tend to emphasize one over the others as reflected by their most abiding attitudes and behaviors. To money status people and money worship people, let's add two other types, which, as it turns out, do hate to talk about money. Number 3 is the money avoidance person. Just listen to what they like to affirm, which is in sharp contrast to the other two types. Good people should not care about money. Or, it is hard to be rich and to be a good person. Or, the less money you have, the better life is. Or, being rich means that you no longer fit in with old friends and family. Or, money is a necessary evil. Or, money doesn't count, I'm above it all. Or, someone's going to rescue me, God will provide. Or, I do not deserve money. As for characteristic behaviors of these money avoiders, one involves what might be called the bill basket, which is usually stored in an out-of-sight place. You get a bill, you toss it into the bill basket, and you walk away, and pretty soon the bill basket is overflowing, which is when you get another bill basket. That was pretty funny. What's happening with you guys over here? Seriously, I think that's hilarious. Now, money avoiders can also act like money monks. And that's a phrase that comes from Maggie Baker in her book entitled Crazy About Money. The money monk takes great satisfaction in feeling superior to money and to those who seek out money in their lives. The primary focus is what is on inside, together with disdain for externals. Money monks can also get into the habit of doing without, as in neglecting basic needs like dental care or car repairs or insurance, or they can find themselves just making do in ways that are akin to purchasing a pair of shoes that are a size too small because they happen to be on sale and therefore affordable. Doesn't matter that the shoes are going to kill your feet. You're just making do. Does any of this ring any bells for you? Do you know any money status people, either personally or in the news? Just wondering. What about money worshipers? What about money avoiders? Or what about the fourth and final type of person, the money vigilance type? This fourth type is never going to get into the same kind of money troubles as the other three because, well, they are vigilant. They are vigilant. What they tend to affirm is as follows. It is important to save for a rainy day. Or, if you cannot pay cash for something, you should not buy it. Or, don't spend money on yourself or others. Or, people should work hard for their money and not be given handouts. Or, I need to keep track of every dime, but don't ask me to talk about it. Or, it is not polite to talk about money. Or, people only want you for their money. Or, I would be a nervous wreck if I did not have money saved for an emergency. Now, you bet these money vigilance folks will probably never feel crushed by debt, hounded by creditors, or advised by attorneys that their last best hope is to declare bankruptcy. They probably won't ever experience this sort of hellishness. But these types can tend to be excessive and unreasonable in avoiding risks which could bring in a great infusion of vitality. Money worries can fill their hearts and fill their minds until there is room for simply nothing else. They can also be the sort of person who drives hours to save $1. $1. Anything to get the best value for their money, even though they are somehow unaware of all of the resources they have wasted to save that measly dollar. That's the four types of money people. This typology, by the way, comes from a study done over the course of a decade by Brad Klontz, a research associate professor at Kansas State University, who also happens to be a financial therapist. And apparently this is a fairly new thing. It's meant to fill the vacuum between, on the one hand, psychologists who are unsophisticated about money and financial advisors who focus on the mechanics of planning without a deeper awareness that it does not matter how clear a person might be about what they ought to do. They can still find themselves doing the exact opposite because people can be their own worst enemies. I know you're not hearing that from me for the first time. People can be their own worst enemies. And so the aim of financial therapy, it's to find out, says Brad Klontz, what aspects of your upbringing, your money beliefs, or your relationship with money are causing you distress, sabotaging you, or keeping you stuck. And the distress potentials, they go way beyond the ways in which each of the money types can fall into extremes, as in money status people becoming gambling addicts, or money worship people amassing crushing credit card debt, or money avoidance people accepting way less for their work than they deserve, or money vigilance people being perfect, obnoxious Scrooges. Some of you are looking at the person beside you as I'm talking. I'm noticing because I can see you because we're in the round, right? So, I'm just saying. In addition to all of that, consider what happens when the different types start to interact. Now, that's when things get interesting. Just imagine this scenario. That moment, a money vigilance type person discovers a money avoider's bill basket overflowing with unpaid bills. The outrage! Actually, the nausea. Someone in the first service is like, no, it's just not nausea. I'm literally throwing up. Just imagine that moment, the interaction between these different. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. Maggie Baker, in her book Crazy About Money, tells the story of a financial planner asking a client couple about how much they need to meet basic expenses. One spouse says $4,000 a month. The other spouse says $7,000 a month. When the planner asks how much they saved in the past year, one spouse says not much. The other spouse says, we did pretty well. Surely that rings a bell for you guys, right? Money fights, the number one cause of divorce in the early years of marriage. Drive-by conversations in which one spouse shoots a dart, boing, at the other because they're frustrated and resentful about the latest incident, and we don't know how to talk about that stuff, so we just kind of drive by shooting, boing, like that. One spouse is all about money status, and the other spouse is into money vigilance. That is a terrible combination. How possibly could they have gotten married without knowing this? But it's the magical thinking mentioned in the Wall Street Journal video we saw moments ago, which goes like this. Our love automatically means we see eye to eye in all ways, including money ways. No one who has ever fallen in love is a stranger to that kind of thinking. And then the real world happens. Rude wake-up call. We are back again to the idea that people don't like to talk about money. When it creates such waves in relationships, why do that? Even money status and money worship folks could agree to this in situations when they're talking to people who are into money avoidance and money vigilance. So let's just stop talking about it already. Let's just do no more money talk. Zip. Y'all do this? Lock your mouth, throw away the key. Just like that. But we can't go there. We know we can't go. As much as we would like to, As Karen McCall says in her book, Financial Recovery, Developing a Healthy Relationship with Money, she says, absolutely, everybody has a relationship with money, whether they want to or not, and whether they know it or not. The relationship may be harmonious, or it may be acrimonious, distant or obsessive. It may be conscious or unconscious, supportive or abusive. It is all these things, she says, and even more than that. That's when she goes on to quote a friend of hers and colleague of hers, David Kruger, who likes to say this. He likes to say that our relationship with money is the longest running relationship in our life. Did you hear that? Even before we are born, our parents' financial circumstances and attitudes lay the groundwork for our very first experiences of the world, including what kind of prenatal care our mothers receive and what our resources, education, and opportunities will be as we grow. And similarly, after we die, our estate or lack thereof lives on. Our children will likely be influenced throughout their lives, consciously or not, by whatever we teach them, intentionally or unintentionally, about money. They may pass on those lessons to their children, giving our relationship with money a multi-generational dimension. In other words, when you are talking about a relationship as central and as influential as the one we have with money, we don't dare zip it. We don't dare go there. Too much is at stake for ourselves and for the ones we love. We must talk about money. And the good news is that we can do that in ways which are much more productive than usual if we do at least two things. Got to do at least two things. First, surround it with compassion. Whatever the money issue happens to be, which is causing distress, which is sabotaging you, which is keeping you stuck, whatever that happens to be, surround it with compassion. You know, what's interesting about Brad Clontze's typology of the four money scripts is that he found something very interesting. He found the links between who held what belief and their family background, their race, their gender, their educational level, their income to be weak. The strong links were altogether different. The strong links were between beliefs and certain kinds of financially traumatic moments growing up. Say, for example, that you are 7 and you find out that the house that you have lived in all your life is going to be taken away from you. Your parents are over their heads in debt. They tell you that you're going to be okay. They just really want you to know you're going to be safe, but that doesn't matter. You still feel paralyzed by fear, vulnerable like anything. Now, what kind of beliefs about money do you think you, the 7-year-old, will form if the rest of your story is that your family figured out a way to keep the house on their own? Your family found a way out of that by themselves. Or by contrast, what if the rest of the story was that grandma bailed you guys out? What about then? Says Brad Klontz, if grandma swoops in and saves the day, you could walk away from that thinking that you don't need to worry about money. Or if there was lots of talk about losing the house, that could impact you, so you live your life afraid of losing everything. This is exactly why we want to surround money issues with compassion, because there is always more than meets the eye. Most of what is really going on is unconscious, invisible, underneath. The problem is not a lack of character. The problem is not a shortage of hard work. The problem is not an inability to solve problems. The problem is rooted in what happened when you were 7. And you were scared out of your mind. Now, as a side note, I wish there were time to expand on the unconscious dimensions of economics. It is just fascinating what light the discipline of behavioral economics sheds on the many irrational things that people do, anything to avoid loss. So many things. And then there's something called neuroeconomics. Maybe you've heard of that before. Neuroeconomics actually peers into our brains to show us what all those irrational things we're doing and thinking about looks like in our brains. It's amazing. The point is, we just have to have compassion for this, for ourselves and for others, when once again we're in a money tailspin and embroiled in yet another money argument. We are simply human. We are human. We must accept our humanness, which naturally sets us up to do the second thing, which enables a more productive money conversation. Go deeper. Go deeper than, for example, what your preferred money script allows. Money status folks, they like to brag. Money worship folks, they love to talk about what fun they're having with their credit cards. Money avoiders talk about money is absolutely irrelevant. Why are we doing that? And then money vigilance folks, well, they think talking about money is plainly rude, and they got no time for it because they're spending all their energy trying to count their pennies to make sure every penny is tracked. Go deeper than that. Get underneath your preferred money script and get to the stories that ultimately made you the way you are. Share those stories with the people you are building a household with. Share those stories with the people you are building beloved community with. Not for the first time do I wish my father was still alive, so I could ask him what it was like to be so close to completing his training as a surgeon. But then he and Mom had their second child, who was me, and he ran out of money. And so he asked his dad to help, and his dad said no, flat out no, because his dad was a strict money vigilance kind of guy who came to Canada from the old country and was a completely self-made man who simply could not comprehend the vast finances involved with medical school. So my father had to start work prematurely as a family practitioner, and he forever felt the loss of a brighter career as a surgeon. What was that like for him? And how was that related to the money patterns we ended up living in our high school, in our household? These money patterns, which were analogous, as far as I can tell, to what a person with borderline personality disorder lives out. It was like that. One moment, the money is free-flowing. The next moment, it's a source of high anxieties, and there's explosions everywhere. And I never knew what tipped the scale, what would shift us from one state to the other. All I knew is that I always felt like I was walking on eggshells when we're talking about money. There wasn't any regularity or any rationale. Sometimes my parents were very generous when I needed things. Other times when I needed things, there were those explosions, and then they made me feel terribly guilty. Oftentimes, money flowed into wants and not needs. Oftentimes, we spent money in completely irresponsible ways, like constantly eating out at restaurants, or Mom's money worship pattern of buying jewelry and clothing and tchotchkes for the house. But when we got home, she wouldn't even take the stuff out of their original boxes and wrappers. They would go straight to storage. And she would continue to buy new things, money worshiper that she was. Meanwhile, my dad loved to say to his kids very angrily, "Do you think money grows on trees?" I bring all this stuff up merely with the purpose of curiosity. I'm going deeper. I'm showing you what that might look like. It is not about, I'm not interested in judging. It's not about that. It's not about anyone being bad. It's just trying to understand. It's just trying to heal. We try to remember the old hurts, and we try to tell the old stories as completely as we can, because that's how healing works. What are your stories? What are yours? What were your parents or parental figures like about money? What financially traumatic moments can you remember? What happened next? Is that why you might be a money worshiper or something else? I would wish that everybody here goes deeper like this. Do this with your small groups. Do this with your friends. Talk about this with loved ones. It's not more money that solves problems. It is more emotional insight, more emotional intelligence. You can win that lottery, but I guarantee you, if you are emotionally stuck, all that extra money is going to be a curse Surely you have read the stories of people who get that windfall and it just is like acid eating away at their lives because they don't have that emotional maturity to stand in that fire and use that money well and make those good choices. Money talk can be productive talk. Surround the money issue with compassion and go deeper. It leads to a healthier relationship with money, and that means greater likelihood for following all that sound advice that financial planners are just bursting at the seams with. You can finally do what they're telling you to do. But first, our hearts must be ready to receive. The emotional work, that piece, needs to be done first. Step by step by step, we are on our way to a better place. Amen.